Oh, we're live.
Saying dumb things with sincere. Oh,
Hi, hello, live internet audience. Hello. You've tuned into Bonus Experience Live here at GauntletCon. For those of you who do not know us, we are two queer women speaking with authority about games. Our podcast is a deeper look at the play experience and the finer details of running and writing games.
we're gonna fuck this up in real time
Uh-huh.
for people who paid to be here.
Yeah, I don't know if any of them actually paid to be here, but we
Oh, okay,
are
good.
gonna fuck this up in real time.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Also, we swear.
Yeah, I'm mad about it. Kat, please feel free to swear.
Here's our overwhelmed guest.
Well,
Yeah.
shit. Okay.
Please introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll just start. Huh? Okay. Hi, I'm Catherine
Hi.
Rahman. I'm a designer. I'm also queer. I live in New York City. I successfully kickstarted a game about the Paris Commune called Reincarnations on a Black Grave. So got to play for the first time today a game I wrote about queer culture in the 90s, which was cool and not at all traumatic. It was. If River's watching, it wasn't traumatic. It was great.
Hey, what's the name of that game?
It's called Midnight at the Oasis.
Oh my gosh.
You can get it in.
Pen is dead.
You can get it in Codex Glamour, which I believe you can now buy on drive-thru.
Excellent.
You do know that this is being recorded, and you could just write that down later.
Yeah. When the pen stopped working, I was like, "What the fuck am I doing?"
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess we're three queer women speaking with authority about games.
Well, I don't know how much authority I have, but sure.
You have the authority we have granted you by being on Bonus
by being on this
Experience.
show. I'm Monica, as you can see right here.
Yeah.
I gotta do this backwards, right here. I'm so bad at this.
There.
Right there. Thanks, Ray. I am a writer and designer and developer for the Onyx Path. Hitting the sauce early, friends. I'm a writer and designer for the Onyx Path Productions. I've been doing this for pretty close to 10 years, so that's my cred. That's why I say I can speak with authority. But also, it's my show, so I get to speak with authority.
You can get as much authority as you want.
Yeah. Oh, this other way.
This
Ray,
is hard.
it's really hard.
10 minutes is just going to be me like trying to figure out how a mirrored fucking camera works. I'm Ray. I'm the industry unprofessional. I've only been doing this and getting paid for it for like 2 or 3 years, but I've been doing it as a fan for a really long time. And I have my own podcast. So that, I mean, you get your own podcast. Try that. This is my first time recording my podcast where I can see myself.
Right? It's a little weird. We usually don't look at each other during, so.
Never look at me during. Okay. I'm gonna purposely not think about how many people are watching and listening to this.
Oh, no, we're off to a start.
It is a start, is what it is.
It's a solid start. Things have begun. There's like a recording thing going on. So
yeah,
we've done all the dumb stuff.
All right. So for your live viewing pleasure, our subject for tonight is going to be intended audience. Ray and I have been consumed entirely by returning to the fun of freeform chat/forum roleplay within a fandom. It's Fire Emblem, guys. If you're fans of the show, it's Fire Emblem. We can't shut up about it. It's been in the last 3 episodes. And that, of course, got us to overthinking because we've been writing with character voice and stuff like that for weeks at this point. How do you write for the specific people you're trying to reach? And of course, me being the overthinker that I am was like, well, I could spin this into a game design topic.
May as well.
And I was like, hey, do you want to do this live? And you said yes.
I didn't, in all fairness, I didn't know I was going to be on camera.
Oh, okay.
I just found that out today. So here I am.
Here we are. Let's discuss.
Yeah, all right.
You want to do the thing where you read the questions? You're good at that.
Okay, yeah. What the hell is an intended audience? What does that mean?
Right. Okay. So at risk of sounding tautological, the intended audience are the people that you, intend to reach. Just as an example, let's say that you're writing something for kids. If you're writing something for children, you should use kid-friendly language and themes.
Yeah, right. This is also going to extend beyond like simple demographics. You could say like white women aged 18 to 25. That's definitely an intended audience, but you're probably going to have something a little more specific for that with the game that you may be designing, unless you really are just trying to appeal to the broadest category possible, which good luck with that.
Right. So that also extends into how you phrase things, like when you're playing, say, like when you're running a game on a stream, like this, versus running a game just for your friends. But we'll touch more on that later. It also can be how you write a post in your play-by-post, since that's what got us all thinking about this in the first place. And whether that text is you as person facilitator, GM, or you as player. Or hell, even when you're speaking as the game facilitator or the player. When you're in those roles, think about, like, do you use I statements? Do you use you statements? Like, if you're the GM, do you address the player directly? Or do you address the character directly? That sort of thing. Like, that kind of word choice is also your intended audience. And I think we should tag our guest in to see if they have any thoughts on this too.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting question, because like when I was working on Red Carnations, my joke was I thought maybe there were 100 people in the whole world that were interested in playing doomed French proto-communists. Fortunately, I was wrong.
Yeah,
I was off by
according
about
to your-
5, factor of 5. There were not 105 people. I mean, I would have been happy with 105 people. So I was happy with 5. I found 5 people who wanted to play, and I was like, okay, this is great. We can play.
Yeah, we got a concept. All right, fine. That's a whole table.
Yeah, like the writing for Carnations wasn't super pointed in like any kind of point of view. It's very mechanistic, because I want the game to kind of just kind of come out of whatever people are doing. So it was much more important to have things like the history be reasonably dry, except for the, I hope to cultivate a small sense of outrage that possibly up to 30,000 people were killed by their own army. But in terms of like other, like one game, since we talked about it, since I talked about Midnight at the Oasis, I wrote a thing in there that is a glossary phrase book of cross-dressing, because I'm assuming that many of the people who play this game will have not done that. And that I wrote in a kind of interesting way. So a lot of it really is just phrase book. Like, here's a word, and it's only defined by a phrase using it. And I hoped that would sort of get people not only to intuitively grasp what it is, but also try and use it in conversation. Because if I just gave you a bunch of terms and gloss them, that's okay. But that's not what I was hoping that people would do with it. Okay. I don't know if that's on topic at all.
No, that's totally on topic.
Absolutely.
Okay,
I was
good.
just thinking about that. I mean, that must mean that you understood that your intended audience for Midnight at the Oasis might include the Venn diagram of people who have cross-dressed in the 90s, but probably not. So probably you not, no. Like provided them the tools for getting into the themes of the game, which, I mean, that sounds like narrowing down your intended audience right there. Which I think maybe that leads us into like our next point on this is, why is it important to try to understand who your intended audience is?
Basically, you don't want to write something that isn't going to land. Or if you're trying to convey, like Kat just said, an experience that other people may not have, you don't want that person who's trying to share that experience to be totally lost. To use that kids example again, like if you intend to write something for elementary school kids and you include college level math, well, you've missed the mark.
Right. Or if you try to make it a game that includes like Game of Thrones level political intrigue, a kid's not gonna either won't understand it or won't give a shit. So miss the mark. But then there's the running for
one more time.
Hi. I'm on camera. It's weird.
Okay.
I keep seeing myself, and it's not what I want to see.
You know, when I tabbed away to look at the outline, I don't see myself anymore. So
I'll just put my outline right in front of my. I don't exist. Great. This can also be beyond just like the design, but also the running. Like, are you running games for people you know really well versus people that you don't know at all? Which Monica has a salient point to make, according to my outline here.
Yeah, I do. It's actually very important when you're running games for an audience, like on a stream, versus running for 6 of your best friends. When you are streaming, you're basically performing. That there is a live audience, this is a performance. And we can even cite really popular things like the Adventure Zone or Critical Role, which are performances.
Mhm.
The stakes are different. And when you are performing playing a game, you need to consider how strangers perceive what you're doing. And I would say that's from how you organize like the gameplay. Like maybe you even script parts of gameplay, which you wouldn't do if you were playing with your 6 best friends in your living room, because nobody is receiving that except you. Like parts of gameplay may be scripted. There may be editing, post editing that like changes that to be a performance. You may be significantly more mindful of the things you say because of an audience. Like you should always be mindful of the things you say, but especially if you are performing for an audience, you should be mindful of the things you say. And so like maybe even you code switch or your tone changes when you are performing for other people to receive it as opposed to an intimate group of people to receive it.
And even beyond like the performance aspects, if you're one of the people who've had the opportunity to like run for friends versus running for strangers at a convention, you probably like in your con listing had to explain, I prefer players with this level of experience for this game, or I prefer players who are this age, or this is going to be the content rating, which right there is you understood what your intended audience would be for this game, and you're trying to like telegraph it to make sure you don't get people who would be like basically like inappropriate, I guess, for your game.
You can also write a con listing that is so esoteric that you will self-select people, like doomed French proto-communist, or
Yes.
what I'm hoping to do at a con soon to run Good Society, except it's based on War and Peace instead of Jane Austen. Oh, I've done this. I've done this multiple times
oh my
now.
God.
It's really good. It's really good, but I figure that will terrify anybody that doesn't want to have to deal with Russian naming conventions, and just go from there and work.
You'll get like the exact
down.
two people that are like, fuck yes. That was me with the last convention that I went to was the first time I ran convention games. And for the listings, I went all out with basically writing like a short story in the listing, because one of them was going to be like heavily based on Cowboy Bebop. So I wrote basically like this little script that was basically a mini Cowboy Bebop like scene in the listing. And then I only got people who were like, oh yeah, I saw it was like gonna be like, it looked like it might be like Cowboy Bebop or something. I was like, yes, you good, I found you. that was for Scum and Villainy, and that was really fun.
That would be a good thing to hack for that. Yeah
it was excellent. Where did my outline go?
I don't know.
What happened? I see myself. Hide me.
Just minimize StreamYard.
Oh yeah, huh?
Just minimize StreamYard.
I'm baby. I don't understand. Okay. So let's talk about how to figure out who your intended audience is, even if it's not something that you're consciously aware of what you're doing.
Okay.
For me, I have like a little bit of experience with this outside of gaming and game design. As a fiction writer and as a novelist, you kind of have to understand at the very least what your genre is. So one of the exercises that I like to do basically is to, and I'll try to like translate this into gaming as opposed to writing. You picture exactly the person who would love your game. You picture this person who gets excited about your tweets, the person who's going to be the first to back your Kickstarter or pick one of the high-end tiers, like the ones that you never expect anyone's going to take. The person who's going to be begging their friends to play this game. You want to have this person in your head and try to think of, what are they like? Who are they? If you can sum this person up with like broad categories, like this is a teenage girl who really likes slice of life anime and spends hours on Tumblr, then you can kind of start to conceive of what your intended audience is, and probably just like stringing those descriptors together, you could probably even picture what that game would be like if it was a game that I was making specifically for, I'm going to call her Suzette. You're making that game for her. But you should also keep in mind that while you don't want to get, maybe you don't want to get too specific, although maybe you do want to get really specific, because you may think only 5 people are going to play your Paris Communist game, but 500 something people actually really want to get it. Too broad is actually an issue, because you can't have everyone as your intended audience. You need to have some realistic expectations. If at the very least, if you're designing a tabletop role-playing game, your intended audience is going to fall under that Venn diagram of people who play tabletop role-playing games, unless for some reason you're like specifically trying to court new people to the hobby.
Man, that's good. I don't have a whole lot to add to that. So tag in the guest. You can take my place in being the person who says a whole lot.
Oh, okay.
Following Ray up if you want.
I see how this works. This is like an incubicle vacation for you here. I mean,
yeah, go tag. You're it.
Actually,
the
it's
part
funny.
of Monica will be played by Kat.
It's I was just thinking when you said, if you're specifically trying to court new people, like since I mentioned it earlier, Good Society, because I've been playing it a lot lately too. That's on my head. And Good Society Good Society is a really well-written game. It's a really beautiful game. I highly recommend people play it if they like freeform Jane Austen games at all, or any kind of.
I didn't know there was a thing, and I'm so excited.
It's amazing. But some of the stuff in there that when I play it, because I play a lot of story games and I play with a lot of people that, are used to the kind of, it's like, this is a horrible situation. Please, how can we make this more dramatic and worse for my character? And there are some things in Good Society that to me feel intuitive. But when I was thinking about them, like, they wrote a role-playing game. It's V. Hendro and Haley, who are wonderful people and really great designers. And I realized they wrote a Jane Austen RPG. And like, there's a huge audience out there of people who play like Jane Austen forum gaming, which is like, for me as a tabletop and occasional LARP person, there's this whole dark matter universe out there that I know exists of forum RPGs. I've never gotten to play them, and I want to one day make this dive into there. But like, there's that whole universe out there, and they might not know tabletop at all, but they're going to see, I can play this thing where I can do a Jane Austen novel with my friends and like write letters. The epistolary phase. It's the killer app. Everybody loves the epistolary phase. It's really good. So so that was that's like a very specific example, I think, where they made conscious design choices to expand what they were aiming at, because there was a larger audience than just tabletop RPGs or just story games.
Right. And if you had told me early, before I'd even started considering this topic for the episode, about there's a free form Jane Austen tabletop role-playing game, I'd be like, that sounds really niche. But obviously not too niche, because there would be like this whole core of diehard fans ready to jump right into it.
They also made a LARP extension for it. It's great.
That's really interesting that you brought up.
I may have played it.
It's really interesting that you brought up that there's this whole like dark matter of people who have maybe never even heard of a tabletop game, who are interested in like freeform role playing, the Jane Austen fandom, which is why we were talking about this topic to begin with, because the two of us are currently moderating a Fire Emblem freeform roleplay community. Like, that's why we got here. And it's basically a LARP.
Like talking about it is like I can see my face while you're talking about it. I was like, yeah, I have been doing that, haven't I?
We have been, yeah. That's nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
It's basically been like running a LARP, and that's why I was thinking about intended audience, like and who you're trying to reach with these sorts of things.
I've
sorry,
been
Kat, what were you
intrigued
saying?
by that kind of forum play, even though I haven't really done it, because a lot of times as a designer or as a player, I'm kind of interested in the place where LARP and tabletop sort of intersect. So
Mhm.
like, because like I like LARPing. LARPing is great, but LARPing ends up, I don't want to say solipsistic, but because you tend to be locked into your viewpoint as your own character and you're within the confines of whatever this shared imaginative space, there's not always a lot of room for doing things like, okay, now we're just going to set this next scene, on the deck of the spaceship.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you can do that in TTRPG in a different way. Like you can actually do that. So forum games where that's possible and expected kind of is kind of a place I like to hit. Like there's a game I love called Witch: The Road to Lindisfarne. It's from like 2008, and it's a very LARPy, very intense game, but it's a tabletop game, and it's got different scenes that get set, and you have a lot of control. And the first time I played it, it wasn't until like towards the end that I realized, wait a minute, we're like not just LARPing, we're not just bound by what we've been given as the directions for where this series of scenes needs to take place. Like I can do whatever I want. I can just say, and it's cloudy and there's a windstorm tonight, and there's two guards with torches standing in front of the cage with the witch inside it, and that can just happen. And you can't do that as easily in LARP, though. There's going to be a million Nordic people that are going to show up and say, "Oh, yes, you can," and I'll go, "Yes, you're right, you can." But
Yeah. This has been an utterly fascinating experience, for me at least, as a person who very much like you is interested in that intersection of design and that like place where, yeah, I can just decide, because we're playing in a fandom, so we're playing established characters and all that, where I just can decide that the character that I'm playing will now have a relationship with someone who in the text of the canon does not ever speak to, and then like what happens when that like relationship becomes successful and is positive as opposed to negative, or like how does that change the story? And there's like 30 people in the community who are more or less,
I don't have the
I don't
exact
know.
number.
There's like 30 people on the Discord, and I think maybe about 15 of them are active at any time. And then there's this fascinating point at which the group decides how the story progresses.
Oh, neat.
By
Like
consensus. It's bizarre. And
I think because my background as a writer, it informs my opinion of this a lot more than like my new background as a game designer. It feels a lot like collaborative fan fiction because there's no rules come out, no dice come out, there's no randomization.
Right.
We all just decide, okay, what would be the next cool thing to have happen in this story, and it kind of progresses from there. And it does feel like a LARP because there's not like you're embodying this one character, and again, it's rules light, no rules at all kind of a situation. But yeah, I have less trouble with the idea of I'm going to control aspects of this scene. I'm going to decide that it's raining. I'm going to decide that it's nighttime.
Right.
But I think that might be because I'm coming from the writing angle as opposed to the gaming angle where I'm like, do I have permission to do this? Do I have the authority to do this? As a writer, it's like, this is my post. I have the authority to say what happens in this post.
Right. So,
but I've also been forum role playing since I was like 12.
yeah, same.
It's been a long
you
time.
say there's no rules, but there's a whole bunch of unspoken rules, and I've been watching them develop as we play.
This social contract, perhaps.
We
Well,
used to do some like forum gaming in a D&D group I was in. It was kind of interesting because the actual game tended to be kind of very hidebound, and like there were issues, but it like on the forums, because we were less constrained by having to deal with all the million billion house rules our GM had, we actually got a lot more story done.
Yeah.
And so but it's a similar sort of thing, and I approached it very much like I'm going to set this scene about my character. I'm going to describe everything that I want to, like, this is her house. It's a really cool house, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, as long as it isn't impacting like another character's agency, you can
exactly
decide whatever you want to have happen.
Oh, hi, Marathi.
Oh, is he
He's watching? Yeah, he's watching.
Hey, One of our children.
Children. Yeah.
Should we get back on topic?
Yeah, we should.
Let's talk more about what we. Where's my? Figuring out intended audience. Did we already talk about that?
We
I
did, we
talked
just
about
did
that
that.
quite a lot.
You did. We talked about that quite a lot, and then we took a left turn into talking about our kids.
Love my children. Oh, so sweet. We're like the two of the three oldest people there, and it's
Four.
weird.
Four.
So four of the
Four.
yes. All right, let's talk about let's talk about word choice. Word choice, Monica. Why did you phrase it like that?
Why did I phrase it like this?
Let's talk about how your writing will impact. Monica,
Right.
explain this point to me.
Okay, sure.
What is this outline doing?
I don't know. Why didn't you change it? So
I didn't want
okay,
to at the
so
time.
I basically said, let's talk about word choice and how that impacts how your writing is received. And so, like, first off, fiction. Lots of game texts have fiction. You're also a fiction writer, and not just fiction, but also flavor text. So, like, Kat previously in the stream said she wrote the history to be in Carnations to be dry, right? And so that the audience would just perceive that as information and then use that as background information, right? Like,
Right.
Right, perfect. That's exactly demonstrating what I'm talking about here. Because depending on how you choose to write your content, your flavor content, your fiction, or even your information, like historical background, that changes the way the audience soaks that up. So like if you're writing fiction and you write in first person, you're creating this like intimate experience that you, the reader perceives through the eyes of that character. Then they get a little step away if you move to like third person limited, and even further away if you go to like third person omniscient. So both when you are creating like the text that the person is reading to understand your game, and like the fiction that maybe gets them in the mood to play, like that sort of thing is something you should consider. That's part of your intended audience, especially your word choice. Also, like if you are writing in-game fiction from the perspective of someone who lives in this universe, and it uses particular phrases, I'm going to tag Kat in after this because this seems like the perfect thing for her to talk about. Like that sort of thing also puts your reader in the mindset of being in this world and like using particular slang or particular phrases or particular things from another language. Like all those things create a context that shapes your reader's perspective. It's super important. It's also important when talking about clear mechanical text, but more on that later.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I'm going to tag Kat in here on this one because this seems like your wheelhouse.
Oui, je suis en cours pour les carnations liées. Les huées rouges, c'est nécessaire d'utiliser beaucoup de mots en français. So yeah, I had an issue with red carnations that,
Rody,
you
what
know,
did she just say?
I said kind of badly that when I wrote red carnations, it was necessary to use a lot of French words. And some of that was like there were conscious choices I made in because there are characters whose background is not French. Because hey, guess what? France had an empire. There were a lot of non-French people who lived in Paris. I did make a conscious choice for a lot of those characters that the transliteration of their name would be using a French style. But like one of them is an Algerian character, and we are going to print on the card. We're going to also print his name in Arabic because. But and it's like an actual significant difference because in French the name is usually pronounced Tariq, but in Arabic it's Tarek. So, and there were other places where I did use French but tried to gloss it almost immediately but there was a certain amount like I wanted the francophility of it to be in the text so that people would at least see it, even if they don't necessarily get everything. And now in the public, now that the book is going to be long enough, there's a pronunciation guide and a little glossary at the back. But there was like another conscious decision I made at one point where I had kind of noticed some of the characters I was bringing into the game had names that had English equivalents, and I realized that should be a design criterion. It should be as easy as possible for people to pronounce these names, even if they don't know how to say them in French. Like, there's not an important difference to me if you say Léonard or if you say Leonard because they're the same name, it's just, one is a little bit Frenchier. If you say Camille or Camille, it's the same thing.
Frenchier.
French.
Yeah, no,
God.
Francophobia is a thing. People can get
Yeah.
intimidated. It's, French spelling is weird.
Yeah.
I've been trying to learn French for like 10 years. It's, there's a lot of pitfalls in there. When I talk with my French teacher, and he's like, oh, here's a little short exercise. I'm like, it's a...
Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no, cat is frozen.
Cat is frozen. Hi. We'll say hi to our kids. Hi, guys.
Hey kids.
Bye.
Hi,
Sorry.
there- a whole bunch of them are here.
Cat, are you back?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, there's Cat.
It's this thing lately, and on the half hour, my whatever feed I'm in just gets...
Yeah,
freaking-
that was exactly 7:30. Are you cursed?
I don't know. I probably have some service or another running on my work
Which
computer.
cursed you?
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
okay.
Well,
Red, you want to talk about voice?
things. Voice is so important. What did I have to say about voice? Voice. Okay. I could go on a tear about voice in your writing. It's really important to learn, and it's so hard to be taught because you kind of have to have like an ear for it. A voice is going to be one of the best ways you can frame the setting and the themes of your work. If you want, I guess, just a really good hands-on example, the first thing that comes to mind for me is the original Apocalypse World supplement, because it's like the pinnacle of the art form. It's like from page 1, you know exactly who they are talking to and what the setting is and what the themes is. It fucking drips with just apocalypse. But voice is going to put your reader and your audience in the exact right frame of mind within sentences, if you can get it right. And getting it right, like I said, it's going to require absorbing a lot of the source that you're trying to emulate, to the point of like reading a bunch of primary sources from the period or genre that you're trying to emulate, reading a bunch of dialogue transcripts of the character you're trying to role play, things like that, trying to get the cadence and the vocabulary right. It's where'd my outline go? Damn it, this is hard.
Sorry, you're having trouble with it.
Voice is both the easiest and the hardest way to get your word choice pulling double duty. But I really recommend practicing at it, like trying to write as though you are a different person or in a different era or other things along those lines.
Cool.
Was that good?
That was good. That was good. But that means you get to tag yourself in for the next question.
Damn it.
You have the first answer, so I'll read it. Never mind.
Oh, okay, yeah.
All right. Okay, so what does that mean for your game setting? And how do you make sure that the setting fits your intended audience?
This comes down to framing and voice again, and it comes down to your themes. You could theoretically take the Westeros setting from Game of Thrones and to cob parts of that into a game for young adults by modifying the framing and the framing devices and the voice. Because when you get down to it, Game of Thrones is about power imbalances and consequences and violence and intrigue, and these aren't out of place in a messy teen drama game. The problem is that there's a lot of nasty, upsetting shit in there that you would have to remove, that you would have to tone down because it doesn't fit an intended audience of teenagers. Am I suggesting a Westeros high school RPG? Maybe. There's probably a better way to do that, but that's where my mind went on that outline. Beyond the concrete stuff, like actual physical, dragons, but no violent genocide. You want to match the complexity of your narrative and your flavor text to the average complexity of your audience. Again, if you're writing for children or teens, you don't want to use really complex sentences and giant thesaurus words. This might seem obvious, but I've been in creative writing classes where people just didn't get I'm writing this for kids, and it's bloody and nasty, and I'm just you aren't writing this for kids. I don't know how you didn't know this, but this is not for kids. when it comes to I didn't realize that this was all me on this. I'm sorry.
I also was trying to frantically fill it out and missed this part of the outline, so
Meh.
it's fine. Say what you
Here
gotta
I
say.
am.
Say what you gotta say.
Fine. When it comes to creating things for an audience that you may not be a part of, do not be afraid to research. And I would in fact strongly encourage you to research. You want to play other games that are pointed to this audience. You want to try to read the notes and philosophies behind these other games. There's no reason for you to reinvent the wheel when there's probably already some neat shit out there that you could just borrow, by which I mean steal like a designer very
Cat is
ethically.
nodding enthusiastically there.
Research, and borrow. Right, Cat?
Definitely. There's no question that like Carnations is very highly inspired by Montsegur 1244 and Witch and a couple other games that I really love. Though now I'm just hung up on this idea of Monster Hearts Winterfell that you put into my mind.
Yes.
I'm
gonna add you on Discord.
I've been running this setting online that's set in Lovecraft's Kingsport, but I've been doing it in Monster Hearts for the most part, and I just run it in whatever year, excuse me, whatever year feels right for me that time. So like we had Monster Hearts Kingsport 1692, which was awesome because it was witch trials. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
And so
here, I'll belch and set it off.
Oh, okay. So like that's an interesting thing about the research that you were talking about. Like some of that,
excuse me,
some of that is I'm obviously I'm kind of into history. I know a lot of history, but like what I discovered for the Monster Arts games is I didn't need to do that much research to get to the point where I could just get people into the game. So like I have the excuse me.
Do you want us to take a break?
No, yes.
We're good. We got you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay.
I have the New England Historical Society on bookmark. And that's great because they have like a ton of like Forteana stuff, like the day the sun didn't come out, it's all this stuff. And like that's really all you need. You need like a couple of things like that. Now, of course, I did end up reading a lot of Emily Dickinson poems and in a biography of Emily Dickinson when I had Emily Dickinson as a major NPC. Yes, I did that. I am proud of it.
Good. No.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, I was very happy. I got to play Emily.
Talk about Emily Dickinson too. I'm gonna add you on Discord. Did we just become best friends?
I mean, I'm not. Maybe you're not my best friend, but
Sorry, we're moving a little fast.
Sit here and watch Ray cheat on me.
What? You're moving a little fast.
I'm sorry.
Monica.
You have two hands.
I have two hands.
Oh,
so many days to record podcasts. Yeah. Monica.
Yes.
Monica,
yes.
What about the system?
Oh, yeah.
How do you make your system fit your intended audience?
It's my time for this. Okay, so I'm going to go off on a brief tear about action text and powers, because as I stated at the top of the podcast, I write for the Onyx Path. I work especially, do a lot of work especially on Exalted and Scion, which are games about playing extremely powerful characters. And while the way powers are in Exalted are established and written, the way they were in Scion was not, and so I got to choose how that went. And one of the choices I made when creating powers in Scion was that I chose to use you as second-person styled sentences for describing what a power does, because that puts the reader immediately in the mindset of imagining what their character is doing. I don't say the character, swings their axe in a powerful arc capable of rending steel, right? Like that's removed. That takes you a step away from it. You have to go to the effort of imagining your own character there. But if I say you swing your blade in a powerful arc, rending through armor, that immediately puts the person I am talking to into the mindset of being like, yeah, I am swinging my sword. And part of choosing to use that word choice especially in the context of a power, especially in something like Scion, which is literally about playing demigods, was to put the reader in the mindset of being that sort of powerful character, and to, I guess, empower them to like want to do big heroic things. So kind of like I said previously, like how you phrase that changes the way you make the reader, interpret it. And for something like extremely powerful powers, for extremely epic, strong characters, like I want you to be in the mindset of being like, yes, I am a demigod. I can punch mountains in half. Like that's what I want you. That's where I want you to be. But when it comes to like telling you how that works mechanically, I'm gonna dial that back and be like, spend this thing. Use it on this step. It does interacts with the combat system in this way, or it interacts with the social system in this way. So that like the first step is you are doing this big thing, and then the next step is here's the thing you do. Here's how it works in game. And so when I write them, it's this thing up front. Cool. I'm in the mindset of it's going to be this cool thing, and then here is the text that tells you how that works. And I almost said something I can't say on air. All right.
Oh, that NDA alarm.
That NDA alarm went off.
I actually want to know what your thoughts are then on like Fate and Fate Accelerated, because the stunts are specifically phrased from first person.
I mean, that's their choice that they made. That's fine. Like,
I mean, what do you think why do you think they would make?
Why do they think that they would choose I instead of you?
Yeah. Because I honestly, when I think about it, I can't think of other games that use like first-person language for describing their stunts. I always
thought that the Fate examples of stunts and aspects were an example of how you would phrase it if you were reading it aloud to your GM. So, like, because I am a bandit of both land and sea, which is the high concept of a Fate character I'm currently playing, who has a horse and is a pirate. He rides the horse on the road. Because I am a bandit of both land and sea, therefore I am especially proficient at fighting on horseback while on a boat. Like that is like you're supposed to be able to make I statements with aspects, and you're supposed to be able to make I statements with stunts. And so like I think that Fate actually does that particularly well, because the point of that of showing it as an I statement is to basically put you in the mindset of saying that's what you're going to say to other people. It's not putting you in the framework of, cool, I'm doing this. This is how you were to phrase it, because I am blank, therefore blank. Right? I
wonder if that has to do with the fact that because Fate was, I guess at the time, not so much anymore. It's kind of the first mainstream like protrusion of narrative games into the consciousness. Like I still run into people who are like, I don't get Fate, because they've been playing like math and fighting games. I wonder if that isn't something to like a trick to try to get the audience to feel like they have agency. Like maybe you have a narrative agency in this game. It's not you do this thing because the rulebook said so. It's because I am this way, I get to do this. Like it, like a narrative permission kind of a thing.
I just saw that Marathi said he's played Scion. First or second edition, buddy?
What?
I'm behind a lot of the stuff for second edition, not for first edition.
Where? Where is he talking to us?
In the live comments on the stream.
What? Oh! Oh my god! How long have people been in there?
Oh my god.
I wasn't getting notifications. Hey, guys. Hey guys. Hey.
Kat, do you have a thought on like why Fate would use I statements or phrasing things like that?
It's funny. I actually have the last Fate character I played. It was open in my PDF reader, and it was for the Fate of Cthulhu playtest. And I noticed that I tended to use third person in describing everything, but like two of my stunts have I in the title, including my favorite stunt of all time. I have a railgun. Ho ho ho.
Yes, it's Fate.
The first 4 sessions were all about building that damn railgun. Then I had the railgun, and the railgun was my friend.
Oh, that's fantastic.
What's left, Monica? Have we gone through all the parts on the outline.
Oh,
yet,
right.
Monica?
Okay, so I also mentioned that, like, for Exalted, I was not allowed to change the way things work. Like, I can't
Right.
redo the charm template in my draft. It will get sent back to me, and I will be told to do it correctly. You know, any game, if you're freelance tips time, if you are working for someone else, another game company, whatever, they're going to have guidelines for how you are allowed to phrase these things. So you, as the writer, will have to conform to them. When you write Exalted Charms, you have to write them in the third person. I cannot address you, as much as I would like to. Not allowed. That's because that's how the guidelines work. That's the style, and you got to stick to it if you want to continue having that job. Sorry.
Style guides, right?
Yeah. Do you want me to talk more about style guides? I guess
not. I saw that on the outline. I was like, what was I thinking?
I don't know. You put on would I like to explain style guides, and I guess like
I don't really want you to.
Okay. Fine. I won't then.
Kat, how's your experience been so far?
I think it's been a bonus experience, actually. Next week, branding. No, not that kind.
We're at 15 minutes left.
Look at us.
Yeah.
We stayed on topic and we didn't run over time.
We did. If this were our full show, we would be over because we try to do 30 minutes. But this isn't. We got an hour. Kat, anything else you want to... I'm going to open the floor to our guest to wax poetic on anything even vaguely related to the subject.
Or should we just talk about Fire Emblem?
I mean, we could talk about Fire Emblem for 15 minutes, but I feel like that would leave our guest out.
Probably because I don't even really know what that is. So
okay.
That's cool. There's one thing that I was thinking about earlier that we didn't kind of get into, which is when you have a situation where perhaps maybe you've got a long-running game or series of games, and then you bring someone else in.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
This is entirely drawn from life at this point.
All right.
Maybe I'm thinking about it because I'm doing a panel on Masks and Nyarlathotep, which is how this all started for me. But I ran a game of Masks in Trail, and then I ran Eternal Wise as I didn't mean it to be a direct sequel, but it kind of became a direct sequel. And then we did another game. I'm just like, yeah, no, this is definitely a sequel. So it's like my friend Anastasia's character Jimmy. You just like, this is your arc, man. This was your trilogy. Just
surprise, you've been the main character.
Yeah. And so like there were issues though when people would come in and they like what were you guys talking about? And as that got on further and further, it's like, well, yeah, I mean, there's all these callbacks, but people aren't getting them. So like walking that very fine line of how you can make sure that there's plenty of callbacks for the people that have been there the whole time, but not lose the new players, because I always had, one or two people that had not played the previous game, even though we had one. By the time I got to the third game, we had a person who had played in the first game, but not in the second, but now was back for the third. So that was fun.
Oh man, yeah. I've never had that experience before.
Yeah, I've got this insane legendarium now. It's like all these different characters are in it, and it's like including, like characters from outside, the mainstream. Is like, because I like Mina Murray, I've got Mina Murray in it because Mina Murray is awesome and also possibly immortal, and which meant like all of Dracula was now in canon in my game. So like, yes. I had all the Dracula characters. I had a bunch of the different Dracula characters do walk-ons every now and then.
Or cameos.
I mean, I was already in Lovecraft's world, right? So, I mean, I don't have to go full on League of Extraordinary Gentlemen because we'd end up in some bad places.
I don't know. Given your taste so far, they sound like they might go some pretty good places.
Yeah. Let's just say I mostly like the first two series in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. We'll just
leave it at that.
Yeah. Even though when you go back and reread them, you're like, okay, wow. This is a little rapey, Alan. This is kind of a little rapey.
A touch.
Just
Just
a touch.
dash.
Just a dash.
It's too much.
No, like my major
Little
criticism.
Rapey Allen is a lot of his work. Let's be real.
I mean, major criticism as a genre ends up being that you get to this point where what had started out as this really kind of clever idea to bring in all these different pieces of 19th century literature just becomes this kind of tick after a while, because like the frame is so crammed with all these different references they're trying to make, and it starts losing the thread after a while.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not interesting anymore, because if you're not steeped in this literature, it's like, okay, you guys are making a joke
And
received.
it's just like the plot is just impelling them between references,
It's like,
basically.
reference received. I will go look it up in Wikipedia later.
I'll Google
So-
it.
What do you think is like something you can do to help people ease their way into something like a new person joining an established campaign? Like, that's a great point you brought up.
Yeah.
Um,
Sometimes I write summaries, like I'll do the history of the game in like 5 or so paragraphs.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
as it turned out one time, like 15. Um,
Right.
I do have this enormous body of the APs that I have written up in a full narrative form, and one day I'll finish the third one. I swear. It's just, it takes a long time to go through the recording and transcribe it. So that exists. I don't expect people to go read 2,000 words just to play in my campaign. So a lot of it is just trying to just try and make sure that when you introduce things, there's some hook you can hang for the new people to be involved. And also, I think, try and make sure that there's consciously new story elements coming in for the new people.
Mhm,
I think
mhm.
is the best way I can do it. But like, sometimes you just want to do that callback, and it's a really important callback, and not everybody's going to get it. And
Yeah.
you just have
Yeah.
to
Maybe
roll
like
with it.
70% new stuff, 30% callback.
I don't know if there's a percentage. I think it depends on how much you can build. Like if the callbacks actually end up building into the plot of the news story, then organically they can be discovered by the players, and like and not all the time do I have people playing the same character. One player did play basically the same character through all three, but a lot of other people didn't, or they like played their. Oh no, that's the new game coming. They're going to play their kids, which is kind of awesome in a bunch of different ways.
Yeah, yeah.
Generational games are neat.
Yeah, I really have started to like generational games, and that's been a thing that's happened in Kingsport, is that somebody will make up a family name in one game, and then like 2 games later, somebody else will just like, oh, that's a cool name, I'm going to use that. So like now we've got this whole tragic history of the Pembleton Deep One family. And it's oh, the poor Deep Ones of Kingsport. They're not Lovecraft's Deep Ones. They're Ruth Ann Emery's Deep Ones, sort of. No.
I'm all for like muscling Lovecraft out of Lovecraftian stuff. I'm on board with that.
Yeah. No, please.
I think if you bring in new people to an established game, especially something that's long running or has a lot of lore that the group has created together, I think you have to be open to whoever you add to the group also putting their thumbprint on that
Yeah,
lore and their
100%.
input and their interpretation of the world that you've created up until now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. There needs to be a necessary process of reinterpretation every time you go through it, because I mean, otherwise you're just going to say the same thing over and over again, and there needs to be twists and ideas and,
Mhm.
and new material that comes out of the old. And
Like as simple as like, oh, you guys thought you killed that demi-lich and you took its scepter and you thought that was the end of it, but actually the demi-lich like escaped to this other like city and haunted them, and that's where this character is from, and now they have this baggage about why didn't you properly kill it, and I don't know. I'm getting very D&D. I'm running a D&D game later this week.
Or the conclusion of the second game was you changed the timeline, and one NPC's lifetime completely changed, and now you get to meet her in the new timeline, and she's a completely different person using a different name, but huge reveal coming.
Yeah.
which kind of happened. It was really cool, actually.
It does sound really cool. All right, we are at like 7 minutes, so I think that's a perfect time to take any questions from the audience.
How much of a delay are we on? Though?
We're pretty delayed, I think.
Maybe we just don't.
I mean, I feel like they would have already posted stuff in there.
Yeah.
Ask us questions. I know you're going to hear this like 30 seconds later.
Ask your aunts questions, please. Nah, they're not gonna.
No, they're not going to ask questions. It's fine. Yeah, well, they may not. There may be other people watching. If there's other people watching, whoever you are, please feel free to.
You're our children too.
You are our children too, and you please feel free to post in the comments.
In the meantime, how do we find us? And
oh yeah, we can tell people who we are in the meantime and kill some time. Where can they find you on the internet?
I'm trying to think. Putting my hand. I am at Ray_Cole on Twitter. If you wanted to talk directly to me, that's where I am. That's that's it. Yeah.
If you want to talk to me on Twitter, I'm at Zenith Sun, like the position of the sun and the word sun. I go ahead at me. I'll fight you. You can also, if you enjoyed this, please go listen to Bonus Experience. It's shorter, but just as stupid. You can find us at www.bxpcast.com. You can subscribe to it anywhere that you find podcasts, like a bonus.
Part of the Misdirected Mark Network.
Part of the Misdirected Mark Network. Yeah, if you enjoy any of the Misdirected Mark shows, Rob, who is running our stream, is our guy in charge. And
Rob has been our handler this whole
time.
Our
handler, and I think he just thanked me in the private chat.
He's been gentle but thorough.
Yes. We got lots of episodes. We talk about all sorts of higher than 101 topic stuff on games. Please go subscribe. Also, we stream every other Sunday if you want to watch Ray and I play Blades in the Dark.
We are gay and we do crimes.
We are gay and we do crimes. Our gang in that Blades in the Dark game is The Post, and we deliver secret mail.
We're spuggers.
Yeah.
Cat, where can they find you? Wrong way, Monica.
The most likely place would be at Aviatrix Games. That's at as in the sign, Aviatrix as in a female pilot, and games as in the thing that I am theoretically doing. That is, I am even occasionally there. Yeah, I was there a lot more before the Kickstarter, and life got busy. But I am occasionally there, and I always like it when people want to say hi. So that's totally okay.
We can argue about Emily Dickinson later.
Cool.
I will fight you
about just anything related to Emily Dickinson.
I don't know.
Let's throw down.
Yeah.
Kat, are you going to Metatopia?
Yeah, I actually will.
Okay, well, so are we.
Friday. I'll be there Friday-ish. I don't know when. Depends when I get out of work on Friday.
Okay. Well, so will we, and you can fight Ray in person then.
Excellent. I'll have to tell you about the copy of the master letters I got when I went to the museum, the house.
Yeah.
And I got it, and I was like, okay, this is cool. It's just going to be and I finally opened it months later, and it's like, okay, so there's definitely the facsimile, and there's also, the transcript, because nobody can read Emily Dickinson.
Yeah.
But even then, I'm opening it, and this little thing falls out, and they actually had cut out and printed little facsimiles of the letters, on double-sided paper, that big, And it's like a real actual copy of the letter. And it was like, holy cow, this is so cool.
That's fucking awesome.
I still can't read her handwriting.
Oh no, but that's so fucking cool. The only handwriting tattoo I think I would ever get would be an Emily Dickinson.
It was
okay.
The house is lovely. If you ever get a chance to go to Amherst,
I got to go to the museum, and I got to go to oh my god, I don't remember the name of the university that's up there, but I got to see
UMass Amherst.
We got to actually see the actual folios and
wow,
letters, and it was as an English major, it was deeply moving. It was very, very important to me. I took a lot of pictures. All right. Anyway,
looks like we're not getting any questions, which is fine. We covered a lot of ground.
All right, I've disowned all my children.
We still love you.
I'm very disappointed.
So I think we are good to wrap. Thank you everyone for coming out. Thanks, kids,
Yes,
for
thank you so
supporting
much.
us. We appreciate you. We love
And
you.
thank you, Gauntlet Con. This has been great. I've
Yeah,
never
thanks,
done a
Gauntlet Con.
live convention before, like on the internet. This is awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. We had to look at each other. Thanks for making that happen.
I had to.
That's for Ray and I. Kat is left out of this.
Yeah, Kat is fine.
I enjoyed looking at
We
you.
were okay
It's
looking
totally
at
okay.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great evening. We'll talk to you later. Like, comment, subscribe, whatever.
Everybody get out
Everybody get out.
and change it if you want to.
Change it if you want to.
Those are our sign-offs. That's the thing that I say when we
All right,
end
Rob, pull the plug.
Bye. Bye. Bye.